Now in the same food truck file, please switch to the next tab for scenario analysis. Scenario analysis is another what-if analysis in Excel. It's like extended version of goal seeking, where we could change multiple numbers together, and we can watch more target cells as the result of the changes. Also, we could set up multiple scenarios like how these things could change in different ways and see how the scenarios could impact the target cells differently. Excel will help us set up the scenarios and also present the scenario results in the report for easy comparison, which make it very easy on the user side to read or use the results for decision making. Let's try it in the food truck example here. The owner of the food truck can drive it to any location for their operation. Sometimes the owner may want to decide which location has the best sales or profits. You can use the scenario manager to create scenarios for your typical sale days on various locations. Before we run what-if analysis here, one more small skill I want to show you. That is to name your sales. As we know, usually we refer to a cell by the column letter and row number, like E8 for the total of the quantity. But when you use your data sets for business purpose, especially for analysis here, it will be nice to refer to each cell using a business name or more meaningful name for your business purpose. So here in this example, I will name all the quantity cells in column E and the total cost and the profits here, as I expect to use them in my scenario analysis. You can use your mouse to select one cell to name. First, I will start with E2. The cell holds the quantity sold for coffee. Now move your mouse to the left top corner. This is the name box that currently shows E2 as your selected cell. You can click into this box, type coffee QTY for coffee quantity. In one word, no space in the middle. When you're done typing, use the Enter key on the keyboard to take this name. Now we have named this cell as coffee QTY. Three things important here. 1. Excel cannot take space in the cell name. So if the name you want to use comes with multiple words, you can use uppercase first letter for each word, but no space between the words. Or you could use underscore between the words. 2. The cell name has to be unique for the entire Excel file. If you have used a name for the other cell in this sheet or even in the other sheets in the same file, it cannot be used again. And lastly, you must press the Enter key on your keyboard to take the new name before any other action. If you just click away, the name you entered may not be saved. Now let's do the same for the rest of this column. Select E3 and come to the name box here. I will name it Cap QTY for cappuccino quantity and press Enter key on the keyboard to take this name. Next, E4, and for this one, I'm going to name it Latte QTY. Press on the Enter key to take it. On the E5, I'm going to call it Water QTY and Enter. The next one, E6, is Donut QTY. Enter on the keyboard. Last one, I'm going to call it IC QTY, ice cream quantity, and Enter on the keyboard. Now also, I want to name the three total fields right here. So E8, I'm going to call it Total QTY, Enter on the keyboard. F8, Total Cost, Enter. And G8, Total Profits, and Enter on the keyboard. That's all the cells we expect to use in the scenario analysis, and I have them all named. As scenario analysis is another what-if analysis, let's go to the Data tab and what-if analysis here. Drop it down. You will find Scenario Manager. Click to it. With this Scenario Manager window, we will first create or add scenarios using this Add button. In the next pop-up window, we're going to create one scenario at a time. For each scenario, we should have a unique and meaningful name as we will compare multiple scenarios together. Now, in this example, since I'm making sales at different locations, I'm going to use the location to name my scenarios. And on the first scenario, this is a typical day I make sales at downtown Fairfax. So I'm going to name it downtown. In the next box, this is changing sales. We could change multiple cells or numbers in the data sets in the scenario analysis. Use the button at the end so I can select the cells in the data sheet that I want to change. And in this example, when I make sales on different locations, I will get different quantities sold. So I will select from E2 to E7 to represent my quantity sold for each of the products at this location. In this specific example, my change in sales happen to be in a continuous range, so I can easily select them together. In other cases or example, you could use incontinuous sales one by one with the Control key held on your keyboard. When you're done, click on this button to go back to the floating window. I will keep the contents in the comments box, but if you don't need it or you want to change it, feel free to delete or modify it. Now, OK here to go to the next window. In this window, you will enter values to the changing cells for this scenario. We have select 6 cells in the range as changing cells, and here you need to enter values for all 6 of them. Now you see why we named the cells earlier. You can see we are entering values for what products right here in each of the box. If you haven't named the cells, you would see E2, E3, all the way to E7 here instead, which is not easy for you to decide what values to enter in each of these boxes. Now, on a typical day that I made sales at downtown Fairfax, I could sell 150 coffee, 90 cappuccino, 95 latte, 50 water, 35 donuts, and drag it down to see the cell number 6 and enter ice cream there and click OK here. That will complete our first scenario for downtown. Let's create a second scenario then. Add. This time, this is a typical day that I made sales by a large playground. So I'm going to name it playground. I'm still changing the 6 quantity sales for my 6 products. Great that it's already selected based on the first scenario we had. But please note that in other cases or example, you could totally use different changing sales for each scenario. That requires you to reselect for this box here. And if you want to change cells that are not in a continuous range, always hold the Control key on your keyboard to select multiple cells from your data sheet. Then OK to go to the next window. Let's enter our sales number for a typical day that we made sales by a large playground. For example, I sold 50 coffee, 35 cappuccino, and 25 latte for the parents, 120 water, 150 donuts, and drag it down 85 ice creams for all the kids. And click OK here. Now, one more scenario. Add. This one is for a sales day by Mason Campers. I will call it Campers here. Luckily, my changing sales are still the same, but always note that you could have different changing sales in different scenario in the other example or cases. Click OK here. In this scenario, I sold 85 coffee, 65 cappuccino, 70 latte. As we are getting close to the end of the semester, all students and faculty need a lot of caffeine. Only 15 water, maybe a lot of sugar to cheer us up. So 170 donuts and 50 ice cream. And click OK. Now with all 3 scenarios ready here, we can create a summary report. Use the summary button. You will need to tell what cells or values we are watching when comparing among these 3 scenarios. And here I want to see the total quantity, total cost, and the total profit in comparing this 3 scenarios, so I can select them as a continuous range. But again, if your result cells are not continuous, feel free to select them one by one with the Control key held on the keyboard. And click OK here. A new worksheet is created and called Scenario Summary. If this is a good name, keep it. Otherwise, you can always right-click on the tab to rename it. Now let's read the scenario summary. Right here, you have 4 columns. The first one is based on the original data we had on the sheets. And then the next 3 columns are for the 3 scenarios: downtown, playground, and campus. Now again, you can see why we have to name those cells. In the report now, we can easily read the product name as well as the result cells that we are watching instead of E2 all the way to E7, and this is E8, F8, and G8. The good business name for each of the cell will help this report more ready to use for the business decision. We can check the result area. If you only focused on the 3 special scenarios we created and compared here, you will find we sold most of items by the playground, but we earned the most profits when we are selling at downtown Fairfax. Also, the sale day at downtown result in the lowest cost that we have to afford to make that sale day. So with that, you can pretty much make a conclusion that for the best profits, maybe we should spend more days at downtown for our business. Using the same kind of scenario analysis, you can also compare your sales by seasons, by different combination of the products, and so on and so forth. So you will find scenario analysis is really powerful and rich to provide different combination and help us to figure out the best solution out of all different choices.